When Gavin appeared in the Loveland City Police Department, all eyes fell on him, some with curiosity, some with caution. His light-colored denim coat was casually unbuttoned, and behind the loose strands of hair on his forehead lay a pair of sharp eyes. He wasn't looking at anyone, and yet his presence filled the air with tension. And he looked utterly out of place. A few days ago, Gavin was transferred to the Loveland City Police Department at short notice. So short that there wasn't even time to give him a fitting uniform. Because of that, he was the only one wearing plain clothes in the office, which further confirmed his colleague's suspicion that he was a princeling of some sort. Gavin didn't clarify the matter, believing that such a misunderstanding would actually benefit his agenda. Gavin calmly walked to his temporary desk, as if oblivious to the attention he received from everyone else in the room. Just then, a young man walked over, put a thick file folder on his desk, and said gloatingly,
"Officer Gavin, the chief said you'd be taking over this case."
Gavin took the folder, gave it a quick look, then nodded to signal the young man to leave. The young man stood frozen for a moment, surprised that Gavin didn't ask for his help. Gavin looked up at him and asked casually,
"Is there something else?"
"No, that'll be all."
The young man, who had set out to embarrass Gavin in front of everyone, trembled and silently walked away. The others in the room withdrew their curious gazes, and Gavin went back to looking at the case. A few days ago, a woman reported to the police that she had been teleported through space. According to her account, she was walking home, and suddenly she found herself on some square a dozen kilometers away, as if the space had been folded. This case was shelved because of a lack of evidence and clues, but a few days later, several police stations received similar reports. As a result, this strange case was escalated to the police headquarters and ended up on Gavin's desk. This is the doing of some evolver. It didn't take long before Gavin arrived at this conclusion. After flipping through the case reports, he knocked the desk with his finger, leapt to his feet, and blurted out,
"I'm going out on a field mission."
The police officer next to him was startled. He looked up and saw Gavin already walking out the door.
"Yep, a princeling gets to do whatever he wants."
A week ago, in an abandoned building, an elevator was descending steadily into the ground. On the ceiling of the elevator, lights flickered because of unstable power. Before reception was completely gone, Gavin reported the situation via his earbuds. The moment the elevator door opened, he drew his gun from his waist and stepped out. Against the dim light emitting from the elevator, Gavin warily surveyed the surroundings. Then one of the task force agents found the light switch and turned it on. Immediately, a cold white light illuminated the whole lab, revealing a mess of files and whatnot strewn on the floor. Whoever was last here must have left in a hurry. Gavin swept his eyes over the files and walked straight to the mainframe sitting at a corner. Someone had deciphered the password and was using the mainframe to recover the destroyed files.
"How does it look?"
Gavin asked. The task force agent was busy at work pulling up all kinds of files and materials. He answered without looking up.
Well, some of the core data has been destroyed beyond repair, but others can still be recovered.
Gavin looked at the recovered files and quickly determined that they were part of a lab report on evolvers. The date stamped on these files suggested the experiment had been going on non-stop for over 10 years. God knows how many more experiments like this had been conducted underground by Black Swan.
"Wait."
Gavin suddenly interrupted the agent, a serious glint in his eyes.
"Export this list."
Moments later, the hidden list showed up on the screen. Amidst the thicket of names, one caught his attention. The same name that had been lurking in the recess of his memory. He couldn't believe what he saw. He clenched his fist and something sparked in his eyes. A few seconds later, he composed himself and said, pointing at the name,
"Open this person's profile."
The screen flickered, then showed an ID photo of the girl taken during her college years. The profile didn't have much content, but it revealed everything about the girl, from her educational background to her family and friends to the company she inherited, all of them stored coldly on the Black Swan server. After finishing reading the profile, Gavin's eyes grew deep with emotion, and everything he had tried to forget threatened to come back. 6 years ago, he had to leave Loveland City because of an Evolver awakening. 4 years later, his mission to track down Black Swan led him back here. During the last 2 years, Gavin had tried to stay away from that girl to avoid putting her in danger. But now it turned out that danger had never been far away from her. Ever since that secret lab was destroyed by the task force, Black Swan had become increasingly active and aggressive. Consequently, Evolver-related crimes had been on the rise.
You're Evolvers too, so why do you work for non-Evolvers?
The man who had been knocked down on the ground by a jet of wind raised his head and shouted at the people in front of him. Without saying a word, Gavin put his foot on the struggling man's back and knocked him back onto the ground. Just then, a burst of static sounded in his earbuds, followed by an urgent message. A disturbance occurred near Central Boulevard.
Copy that.
Gavin disconnected the call, handed over the newly awakened Evolver to one of the agents, and headed off to the site where the energy disturbance happened. At the crossroad, a strange car accident had just been averted. The onlookers, who were clueless about what was happening leading up to that fatal moment, dispersed as the cab that caused the scene drove off, leaving only a girl standing by the road. At that moment, no one noticed a figure appearing in the sky. Gavin was afloat in the air, shielded from the falling raindrops by a gust of wind around him. He intently watched what was happening on the ground, his eyes calm and sharp. He gave the site a quick scan and determined it was an accident averted by an Evolver. There was the cab driver with an unknown motive, and the victim. Gavin paused as his eyes fell on a girl amidst the bustling crowd, the one who had just had a brush with death. She bent down to pick up the snacks strewn on the ground, then gazed into the distance, lost in thoughts. Seen from high above, the people on the ground appeared as tiny dots. Still, Gavin could see the girl's face clearly in his mind's eye. He hadn't expected to see the girl again. As if in response to the churning emotions in his chest, the hem of his coat flapped violently in the conjured wind. He couldn't look away from her figure, which had changed since he last saw her. 6 years had gone by in a flash. His mind went by to that lonely night in the library, but the details had become fuzzy. After a long while, he automatically pressed the call button on his earbuds and reported to the command center.
Agent B7. Energy wave detected in Loveland. Sending coordinates.
Almost instantly, he received a command from the other end of the line, and he replied,
Target locked. Taking action immediately.
Gavin's gaze followed the girl until she slowly disappeared around the street corner. He thought of Black Swan's list, and a glint of concern flashed across his eyes. The Evolver inside the girl was awakening, and soon she would bid farewell to her peaceful life. When that happened, he would no longer be able to protect her by keeping her at arm's length. The sun was not fully up yet. A shaft of sunlight snuck through the crack in the curtain and fell on Gavin in the bed. He woke up from his dream panting, raised his arm to block the sunlight, and remembered the fragmented details of the dream. The room ablaze with fire, the familiar balcony in school, the ruins after the explosion, and the pool of blood on the ground. It seemed that he hadn't been able to rest easy since he saw that girl again. After taking some time to regain his composure, Gavin got up and walked into the bathroom. The cold water splattering down over his head drove away his drowsiness and gave his mind clarity. And in that moment, the words that man said the other day came back to him loud and clear. She's different, just like you, Gavin. She's not destined for a peaceful life. Are you really able to protect her? The splash of water broke the silence of early morning. Gavin raised his head, letting the water fall on his face and slide down the scars on his body and into the floor drain. A few moments later, He opened his eyes and said to himself with absolute determination,
I will protect her.
Gavin turned off the shower, then grabbed a towel to dry his hair as he walked out of the bathroom. His phone flickered twice on the table. It had received a message from his informant. After skimming through the message, Gavin dialed a number on his contact list. As soon as the call got through, he said,
Regarding the earlier proposal about the follow-up report, I have a request.
if that target was her, the safest place for her would be by his side. An hour later, Gavin came to a path by following the lead provided by his informant. It wasn't until he saw the school gate that he realized he had come to Loveland High School. He glanced at the seemingly refurbished gate and, with no intention of revisiting the school, continued on toward the alley his informant mentioned. It was a rather hidden alley, with one end connected to a busy commercial street. The police station that received the report had already investigated this area but found no clues. The surveillance camera in this alley happened to break down on that exact day. Someone could have sabotaged it on purpose. After finishing his investigation, Gavin was ready to leave when suddenly a voice called out to him.
Gavin, is that you?
Gavin turned around and saw a middle-aged man with dark skin and a haggard face. It took him a while to remember who he was, and he asked in surprise,
Are you still running the diner here?
Oh, it's really you. For a second there, I thought I got the wrong person.
The man who Gavin had known to be a few words showed a hearty smile.
What brings you here?
Gavin answered honestly.
I'm here to investigate something.
The middle-aged man paused for a moment, then suddenly realized something.
So it's true that you work as a police officer now, huh?
Gavin nodded. The middle-aged man seemed a little surprised. Then, after a moment's hesitation, he said,
It's already noon. Want to go sit down and have a bowl of noodles?
Gavin was about to shake his head and say no, but somehow ended up agreeing to the invitation. Lynn's kitchen looked a lot more spacious than it did last time he was here. The wall opposite the door was covered in paper notes as it was before. Gavin swept his eyes over it, and some memories came back to him. He went to his usual spot and sat down. A few minutes later, the diner owner came to him with a bowl of chili noodles. The yellowish noodles were covered in a layer of shiny chili oil, neatly sprinkled with garlic, coriander, and sliced beef. The dense aroma was carried upwards by the steam, the same aroma he had always remembered, and immediately whetted his appetite.
Try it. See if it's got any better.
The middle-aged man smiled sheepishly.
It's been a long while, huh?
It smells nice.
Gavin replied as he picked up a noodle and put it in his mouth. The familiar taste relaxed his tense lips. Just then, music blared from Loveland High School to indicate lunch break. Before Gavin knew it, students were flooding in the diner, and soon he found himself amid a noisy crowd. Judging by their uniforms, these were students from Loveland High School. They curiously studied Gavin, who looked out of place with everyone else in the room, then turned their heads back to chat and laugh. They were the very image of carefree youth. With a faint smile that curled up the corners of his mouth, Gavin quickly finished his noodles, left the payment on the counter, and walked out of the diner.
Okay then, 1:30 p.m. at Flower Fair.
He set up a time to meet with one of the victims. The moment he hung up the phone, another call came in.
Chief Director UN?
Captain Gavin, right? Regarding the follow-up report I talked to you about before, the show producer will meet you at the police station at 1 p.m.
Okay, got it.
Gavin replied curtly and hung up. There was a trace of a smile in his eyes. At noon, traffic moved slowly on the city's congested thoroughfare. Suddenly, a black car sped by, whipping up a gust of heat that lifted the hem of his coat. The gust seemed to cling to him and wouldn't leave. It was a long trip from Loveland High School to the police station, which gave him plenty of time to reminisce about the past. That evening, when she sheltered from the rain under the eaves of a house. That selected poetry of Lord Byron sitting in the library covered in dust. That letter stained with blood. That afternoon when the piano played and ginkgo leaves flew. That girl who entered his life in his most desperate moments. Suddenly his frown relaxed, and his long pent-up emotion seemed to have finally found an outlet, gushing forth like a tide. It was something he had never felt before. The fuzzy memory of 6 years ago suddenly became clear and vivid, like a mirror cleaned of dust. He couldn't remember the last time he felt such a strong emotion, a passion as bright as the sun. Hell, he didn't even know he was capable of feeling this way. 1 p.m. at Loveland City Police Department. Gavin unhurriedly walked down the corridor with a police cap in hand and saw from a distance Officer Landsman, his long-standing rival, chatting to a girl who listened and echoed absent-mindedly.
I hear he's a good-for-nothing big shots boy. You can tell by his surname he's not from an ordinary family. Better stay away from him.
Gavin raised his eyebrows, turned the corner, and saw that familiar figure. With her back to him, the girl stood as tall as he remembered, with her hair cascading down around her shoulders. Gavin could picture her widened eyes sparkling with wonder when she heard the gossip. Before Officer Landsman strayed too far from the truth, Gavin chimed in.
Officer Landsman, just who were you saying is a big shots boy?
Officer Landsman was startled. The girl turned around, and her crystal-clear eyes met Gavin's. He was immediately taken back to those moments where he had his first taste of romance. The folding of time brought together two people who had been drifting apart. At this moment, all his memories of those days materialized into the girl before him. Seeing the fright and confusion on the girl's face, Gavin smiled and asked,
Do you remember me?